Welcome to the shadows, where fear comes to life. If you crave chilling stories, bone-rattling horror news, and the twisted tales that haunt your dreams, you've found your dark corner of YouTube. This is Horror Locker, your guide through the macabre, the mysterious, and the downright terrifying. So light a candle, lock the doors, and let's dive into the darkness together. The wind had always felt like a friend in Holyhead. On a clear day, it rushed in from the sea, catching in your coat sleeves and hair, filling your lungs with something sharp and ancient. Catrin Maguire liked that kind of air. It made her feel grounded, even if the world around her seemed to be cracking at the edges. On the afternoon of November 15th, 2021, the air was colder than usual, sharp and brisk. A CCTV camera caught a fleeting image of her, coat zipped up, hands in her pockets, walking with purpose near the RSPB Nature Reserve, just 150 yards from the home where she'd grown up. No one knew it yet, but it would be the last confirmed sighting of her. Just 6 days earlier, Catrin had been laughing on the phone with her mum. Her voice was bright. She joked about a spider that seemed to have taken up permanent residence in her new flat in Bangor. It felt good to hear her sound like that again, Wendy remembered. After months of stress, health setbacks, and a housing nightmare that had left her rattled and afraid, Catrin had found something like peace again. The new flat behind Patrick's pub was warm, toasty, she'd said. And more importantly, it was hers. She was supposed to meet her flatmate that Monday to finalize their tenancy, but she didn't show up. Instead, she boarded a train. Her parents didn't know she was coming. Her friend didn't know she was gone. The letting agent was waiting with papers that never got signed. And in her room, her phone, a constant companion, had gone dark just after 1 p.m., manually switched off. The house she walked past in Holyhead, just a short stroll from her parents' front door, flat on Kalepa Street, should have been a fresh start. Bangor wasn't home, not like Holyhead was, but it was where Catrin could build something of her own. Student life, late-night takeaways, library marathons, long walks to clear her head. She and her friend had moved in August 2021, eager to make the most of their final year at university. The flat had looked good on paper. But paper lies. When Catrin's parents first saw the place, the disgust in Wendy's voice was immediate. The mold was so thick it almost felt like it had a smell of its own. Damp, sour, insistent. Water leaked through a bay window. The carpet was so soaked that 6 buckets of cleaning still left the water dark brown. The ceiling looked like it had been chewed through by rot and time. And everywhere, scaffolding poles, work materials, debris. It didn't look lived in. It looked abandoned. I was appalled, Wendy said later. But she was 22. The last thing you do is say no, because they'll do it anyway. They had no idea then how quickly the flat would unravel Catrin's calm. The asthma, which had lain dormant for a decade, came roaring back within days of moving in. But it wasn't just her lungs. It was the feeling of being watched, of being trapped, the kind of fear that creeps in not with a scream but with a whisper. Then came the landlady, August 10th, a date her family would never forget. That was when Catrin sent a calm, professional email asking for the carpet to be cleaned or replaced. What followed wasn't professionalism, it was fury. The landlady entered the flat unannounced, stepped into Catrin's room and screamed. Witnesses would later recall her words like fragments of glass. "You're a vile young woman. You come across as sweet and timid, but look at you. I expected better from homegrown." She stamped her phone into pieces on the floor before her partner dragged her out. After that, Catrin was scared, truly scared. She stayed at home in Holyhead for 4 nights, curled up in the warmth of childhood safety. But she also felt like she was slipping backward. She didn't want to miss out. She didn't want fear to be the reason she gave up the life she was trying to build. So against her parents' wishes, she went back. That's when she began sleeping with a wedge under her door. She stayed out late not to socialize but to avoid going home. The flat didn't feel like shelter anymore. It felt like surveillance. Every email, every knock, every unexpected noise in the stairwell, it frayed her, slowly, quietly. By late September, the ceiling finally collapsed. Not a metaphor, but the real one above her flatmate's settee. Gwynedd Council declared the flat uninhabitable. That should have been an ending. Instead, the landlady's partner sent emails demanding rent for months ahead, £822, for a mold-ridden, unsafe shell of a home, for girls who were too nice and too young to know what to do. But Catrin said no. She moved into a new place on Hill Street, warm, clean, close enough to the noise of town to feel alive, but tucked behind a pub where the lights felt safe. She was getting caught up on her assignments. She was planning a gap year. She even got her passport renewed. Her family thought she was coming out of the fog. But trauma doesn't always leave loudly. By October, the worst was supposed to be over. That's what everyone thought. The flat on Hill Street was new, uncluttered. The walls didn't flake. The carpets didn't hold the smell of rot. The window let in light instead of damp. Her mum remembers Catrin calling and saying, "It's toasty here. This is much better." And in that moment, it felt like the turning point. But comfort on the outside doesn't always quiet what's churning inside. There were small signs, not obvious ones, but to a parent, they stack up. Catrin had started losing weight. There were things missing from her room that, in hindsight, made Wendy pause, like the absence of certain toiletries, the subtle reordering of the small, private habits that only someone close would notice. She was tired, not dramatically, not despairingly, but in that invisible way that creeps in around the edges. Her eyes were often heavy, even when she smiled. She was up to date on her assignments, but there was a wariness underneath her academic focus, like someone pushing through because there's no alternative. Her parents asked questions gently, but Catrin was always the calm one, the self-contained one. "I'm fine," she'd say. She laughed easily. She was never dramatic, even in moments when anyone else would have broken down. After the verbal abuse, the move, the collapse of her ceiling, she had managed her words. She kept things in their compartments. But stress, when unspoken, doesn't disappear. It sits like a weight you carry in silence. She may have been afraid of seeming dramatic, or maybe she didn't want to worry anyone further. Maybe she didn't even have the words. Some experiences, especially those that are demeaning or threatening, don't leave you with clear language. They leave you with tension in your shoulders, with doors wedged shut at night, with long walks taken not for fun, but to stay away from somewhere that no longer feels safe. And then, there was the possibility that she was pregnant. Her mother mentioned it later, not as a confirmed fact, but a suspicion born of knowing your child's rhythms. The weight loss, the missing sanitary products, the small changes. For a 22-year-old dealing with the aftermath of fear, displacement, and financial pressure, this added layer might have been overwhelming. Not necessarily catastrophic, but too much. There's a kind of overwhelm that doesn't show itself in breakdowns or shouts. It shows itself in quiet decisions, in a train ticket purchased without telling anyone, in a phone turned off, in a walk past your childhood home without ringing the bell. Maybe she just needed a pause, a moment away from the noise, a place to breathe. Or maybe there was something or someone she needed to see. Whatever the reason, what's left behind is only a trail of questions. The visible part of her life said, "I'm okay now." But emotion doesn't live in visibility. It lives in the unseen, the unsaid, the private negotiations we make with ourselves in the dark. And so on November 15th, with the air crisp and salt-laced, Catrin walked through Holyhead, her hands in her coat pockets, past the house she'd grown up in, and she didn't stop. Holyhead just after midday. The train doors opened with that familiar sigh of air, and Catrin stepped onto the platform with a small backpack. She hadn't told anyone she was coming, not her friend, not her parents. The return ticket in her pocket suggested she planned to go back. Maybe she wasn't even sure herself. The streets of her hometown hadn't changed. Same stone walls, same sea wind dragging through alleyways. Just walking there stirred the kind of memory that isn't made of thoughts, but muscle. Her feet knew where to go. She passed the bakery with the blue sign, the church where the bells rang every Sunday, then up the road toward her parents' house, not to visit, but to walk past, just 150 yards away. It was early afternoon. Maybe her mum was home. Maybe the kettle was on. But Catrin didn't stop. Sometimes when you're carrying something you can't explain, you keep moving because stillness would mean confession. She kept walking. The land began to rise gently as she neared the RSPB Nature Reserve. It was the kind of place that cradled both life and loneliness. Wildflowers tucked into stone, seabirds circling overhead, and the distant pulse of waves below the cliffs. She'd walked here many times before, as a child, as a teenager, alone when she needed to think. The CCTV caught her near the café at 1:18 p.m. The wind was sharp that day, a late autumn chill. A shepherd sitting in a van near the path remembered her. She didn't look panicked or sad, just quiet, focused. She walked past him and up toward the car park at South Stack. The view from there is staggering. Cliffs drop hundreds of feet into the sea. Gulls hover in slow, suspended arcs. There's a lighthouse out on the island, whitewashed, patient, always watching. It's the kind of place where the world feels paused, where your thoughts get louder because there's nothing else to drown them out. Police dogs later followed her scent from Holyhead to that car park, and then nothing. No trail past the cliffs, no scent near the edge, not even a trace near the lighthouse steps. It was as if she'd stepped into the wind and vanished. One possibility, she was picked up by a car. The dogs lost her scent at the top car park. That's where the trail ends. No CCTV, no final wave, no goodbye. But maybe that's not how she wanted it to end. Maybe she just needed time, space, a pause from the weight. The sea says nothing. The cliffs keep their silence. When Wendy's phone rang at 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday, November 16th, the voice on the other end carried both confusion and concern. Catrin's flatmate, waking to an empty room and an unanswered tenancy signing. By then, Catrin's phone had been off for more than 24 hours. The missing persons protocol. Within the hour, North Wales Police logged a missing persons report. For investigators, the first day is critical. Detective Constable Aled Hughes and his team began by gathering local CCTV. They confirmed Catrin's last sighting on Holyhead High Street at 1:08 p.m., then tracked her journey toward South Stack. Lines of sight around the RSPB café, the car park, and the main access road were pulled, digitized, and time-stamped. The phone and finance checks. Digital forensic specialists worked to recover Catrin's mobile last-on data. They determined her handset was switched off manually, no accidental power down or network drop, and that her bank card hadn't been used since the Monday morning. The sniffer dog search. The next morning, a trained scent unit combed the route from the town center to the top car park. The dogs picked up Catrin's trail up to the South Stack lot, then lost it entirely. Investigators marked that as the point she either left on foot toward the cliffs or met someone by vehicle. Officers spoke to locals and visitors in Holyhead and at South Stack. The shepherd in the parked van reiterated that Catrin had appeared calm and alone. Cafe staff confirmed she didn't buy refreshments. A walker recalled seeing a dark hatchback exit the car park shortly after 1:30 p.m., but couldn't recall registration details. Because cliff incidents are sadly not uncommon, Coast Guard teams searched the cliff tops and shoreline between South Stack and nearby beaches. Helicopter overflights and drone footage added aerial sweeps, but no signs were found of a fall or of anything washed ashore in that sector. Detectives also reconstructed Catrin's recent life. The Hill Street flatmate provided a timeline of Catrin's last known activities, logging university work, email exchanges, and household routines. Gwynedd Council confirmed the 2-week gap between Catrin's final phone call home and her disappearance held no reports of fresh complaints or additional conflicts. Landlady correspondence was reviewed to see if there were ongoing threats or messages in the days before she vanished. Nothing new had arrived since the eviction from the first flat in late September. By Thursday, North Wales Police issued a statement urging anyone who saw Catrin after 1 p.m. on the 15th, or who might recognize the person in the CCTV stills, to come forward. Local radio and social media carried her photo and details, amplifying the search. The investigation, meticulous, methodical, remained hampered by one stark fact. After that final CCTV capture, there were no more electronic breadcrumbs, no phone pings, no bank transactions, only questions. Did she deliberately step away from her life? Did someone pick her up in that car park? Or did something else, something none of the searches could reveal? In most disappearances, time is the enemy. Every hour without a lead is an hour the trail goes colder. But in Catrin Maguire's case, time wasn't just the enemy. It became the environment. The hours didn't blur with action. They echoed with absence. The first hope lay in her phone. North Wales Police Digital Forensics retrieved metadata from Catrin's mobile provider, but it confirmed what the family feared. The phone had been switched off manually. There was no sudden drop, no drained battery, no trace ping to suggest she'd moved elsewhere under signal. It powered down not far from her final CCTV sighting, shortly after her friend had texted about the tenancy signing. She didn't respond. She read the message, and then the phone went dark. Her laptop and university accounts offered little more. Emails had been clean, assignments had been submitted. There were no drafts of goodbye letters, no password changes, no signs of planned escape. If she was running, she'd left no digital footprints. If she met someone, they had not contacted her online. If she had intended not to return, she made sure no one could trace why. Footpath and environmental analysis. Detectives brought in mountain rescue volunteers and coastal search teams to scan the cliffs from land and sea. South Stack is vast and unforgiving. Jagged rock shelves, hidden gullies, and hard-to-access tide pools. But it is not endless. Boats were dispatched to scour the base of the cliffs. Divers assessed likely impact zones. Drones swept the vertical drop line. But there was no torn clothing, no belongings, no body. If Catrin had fallen or jumped, she had not landed where logic dictated. And even the sea, relentless and unsparing, gave up nothing. Vehicle tracing and the South Stack car park. The most haunting detail remained the scent trail, tracked by dogs from Holyhead to the South Stack car park. It stopped there, in the upper lot, not at the edge of the cliffs, not on the lighthouse path, right there, among the faded parking lines and seagull calls. The possibility, she got into a car. Investigators combed automatic number plate recognition PR systems and local business CCTV for vehicles leaving South Stack between 1:30 p.m. and 2:15 p.m. The only partially matching lead was a dark hatchback seen by a birdwatcher, but there was no make, no plates, no occupant description. They reviewed traffic camera footage on all arterial roads heading out of Holyhead. Nothing unusual, nothing provable. It was a gap. And in police work, gaps don't close themselves. DNA, clothing, traces, the physical nothing. No items of Catrin's were ever found after November 15th. She had taken almost nothing with her. No overnight bag, no change of clothes. Just her coat, her phone, and her silence. The forensic lab had no blood to test, No suspicious hairs or fingerprints. No found articles at the cliffs, in the cafe bins, or on nearby paths. In most missing person cases, there's something to start from. A dropped item, a text, a shoe. But in Catrin's case, they were chasing the impression of someone who had vanished with near surgical precision. Behind closed doors, investigators drafted several working theories. Voluntary disappearance, that Catrin, overwhelmed by fear, pressure, or something unknown, planned her departure in secret. Suicide, that she had gone to the cliffs for that purpose, despite no evidence of a fall or intent. Third-party involvement, that she met someone at South Stack, known or unknown, and either left willingly or under duress. But no theory had enough to hold. No evidence rose to the level of confirmation. Every answer remained an echo. And so the case moved quietly to the open but unsolved file. Still active, still checked, still with officers who cared, but with nothing new. No sightings, no calls, no light in the fog. To this day, Catrin's disappearance remains one of North Wales' most mysterious modern missing person cases. A young woman with no history of trouble, no visible crisis, and no evident plan, simply gone, just 150 yards from the safety of home. The investigation is not closed, but the silence is deafening. Somewhere, someone may still know something. If you made it this far, congratulations. You've survived for now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell, because in the world of horror, you never know what's lurking next. Got a creepy story, a twisted theory, or a horror film you think we should unearth? Drop it in the comments. I'll be watching. Until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and whatever you do, don't look behind you.